The father of Abram was Terah. Terah had a son who died. His name was Haran. God called Terah to leave the Chaldeans to go to Canaan. So actually he started really well, really well. And when he came to a place called Haran, he stopped, and he stopped there. I think the Bible says 205 years, and then he died. He did not move on from Haran. So he started well, finished badly. Why did he stop at Haran? Well, Haran was the name, it was exactly the same name as the name of his son who died. So as a metaphor, he arrived at the place of death and loss and stopped, and he didn't move on for the rest of his life, and he died. When he died, Abraham got the call from God, almost like, what are you doing here? You know, Genesis 12, 1 and 2. So there was a desolate inheritance that we read about in Isaiah 49, 8, that actually Abram picked up and set out for Canaan. So he set out from that place of death and loss. So the conclusion for that is, do not stay at the place of death and loss, as this will rob you of your journey to the part of the destiny that God is calling you to. And obviously Canaan is the promised land, and it is that again, a symbol of your calling, destiny, and purpose that is mentioned in Psalm 139, verse 16. All right. So on your way, on your pathway, remember I was walking along a pathway, 1,000 years like a day, days like 1,000 years. Who are you walking with? It's important who we walk with. It's important that actually we are, as we move from the place of death and loss of relationship, loss of a dream, loss of a company, etc., loved one, etc., that we begin to be in the right time zone, as well as the geography of the place that God is taking us to. All right. So in other words, what we say in Speaks of Life, when particularly if I'm in a business meeting, you get there before you get there. If I'm going to be in a difficult business meeting, I get there before I get there. In other words, I get there in the spirit realm and actually pray it up, so that when I get there physically, I've already been there, and actually it's already prepared, and the outcome goes really, really well. All right. So you get there before you get there. What do I mean by that is we do not suffer spiritual jet lag. All right. So we all know the problem of jet lag. Yeah. So I go to Australia quite a bit, which is probably the most extreme from the UK. It's about 12 hours, 12 hours jet lag. Juliet will tell you that I do not suffer jet lag at all, even when I go to Australia. Now, part of the reason for the way to beat jet lag for those who travel a lot is you do not hark back to the time it was in the land that you left. Correct? If I'm left the UK and I'm in Melbourne, I do not spend the next week in Melbourne saying I feel dreadful because it's actually my bedtime in the UK, or I feel dreadful because I should be getting up now. That is the worst thing. It takes you forever to adapt to that particular time zone. So I'm there physically, but in terms of my time zone, what we would call scientifically your circadian rhythm, all right, because that's your body clock, you are out of synchrony with the place that you're in, with the time zone that you are in. So actually, wouldn't it be great if we knew someone who could help us with time? 1,000 years is like a day, days are like 1,000 years. Jesus is out of time. He is out of time. So he's the only one that can help us. And yes, does that make sense? So that then means the fact that as we journey from that place of that we've left, death, loss, and everything else, and we leave behind that conversation, because there are people who will want to stay there, and there are even people that want you to keep staying there because that will make them feel a lot better about themselves. They probably don't even really subconsciously care about what you're going, as long as they feel all right. All right. Okay. It's never deliberate. It's always subconscious. You will then just hear the overtones of, well, you might be in Melbourne, but actually in the UK it's this time, so keep in this time. So we should be in the new place, in the new time zone. All right, so we need to be looking into the eyes of him who is out of time. It says in 1 John about, as we focus on Jesus, we focus on him who is light, who walks in the light. So it comes back to Jesus. And he walks in the light, and he is the light. And we know the fact that, you know, I don't need to tell you the fact there's a lot there about in the press, about in the media, about blue light. All right, I've got a couple of studies starting on blue light, and the fact that blue light overstimulates you. It can muck up your circadian rhythm and actually cause you to be out of synchrony with the time that you're in. So spiritually, we should be looking at the right light, the bright light, the light of Jesus, because that is the light that will help us to synchronize spiritually, not only with the geography of where we are, but with the right spiritual time zone. So we begin to see the new, we speak the new, we feel comfortable in the new, because we've already adapted to the time zone of the new. There's nothing worse than being in the new physically and actually operating body clockwise in the old. So actually Jesus will help us to be in the right spiritual time zone. So Galatians 5 talks about walking with the Spirit. Song of Songs talks about walking, the beloved walking with the lover, just like the lover did with Adam. So it's about walking with Jesus. It's about walking with those who have walked with Jesus and who have walked with God. Enoch walked with God. We're going to ask questions. Who are we walking with? Are we walking with people who walk with God? Or are we walking with people who are not walking with God, who are actually out of synchrony with that, and actually even maybe just walking with the pace of the old, rather than actually walking in the new, but not just physically, but spiritually as well. So as we journey from Haran to the promised land, and I'm going to finish here with this and ask Claire to share an encounter we had, as we take the hand of Jesus and walk with him, it's all about walking with him, is the fact that as we take the hand of Jesus, he will help us on the process as we leave Haran to Canaan. We are already walking with the pace of the new, because we are valuing the process, because we're all about endpoint. It'll all be good when I get to the promised land. I don't care who I walk with, how I walk, and everything else, but it is important who we're walking with on the way. Jesus will give us the right pace. He will give us the right stride length. He will ask us to pause when we need to pause, and everything else. So that means we've got there before we've got there, because when we arrive at the promised land, we're walking with the stride of the new, we're walking with the pace of the new, we're walking with the confidence of the new, and actually we recognize those who are walking in the new, because they are walking with the same rhythm of Jesus that we're walking with. And it's then easy to partner with those who are walking in the new, rather than partnering with those who are walking in the old, and we find it out 3 years down the line, and we've wasted a lot of time. And we've all been there. So we regularly have heaven encounters where it's all about Jesus, and we take the hand of Jesus and ask him to show us how to walk in this process. So Claire, I'd love to, I've skipped a lot tonight because of time, and I can answer questions in Q&A. I do apologize for missing out gaps, and if you've got questions, that's great. And if we don't get around to answering them, just ask God, ask Jesus, look in the Bible. I read the Bible every year. This is my 23rd time through. The answers are in the Word of Life. in the Bible. All right. So Claire, would you please share an encounter you had by taking the hand of Jesus and what it meant to you?
Sure. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I have a lot of questions from that. Thank you so much for that. One of the questions that we'll be thinking about in our groups tonight is ask God to show your walk today, and how has he walked with you? And I was asking God these questions, and he was really highlighting how he walked with me. I don't know, when you ask God questions sometimes, and it totally surprises you where he takes you or what he shows you. But for me, just very briefly, when I asked him that question the first time of how I was walking with him and how he was walking with me, to my complete surprise, he took me sort of to a picture of my birth in my hometown in Northern Ireland. Some of you are on from here to that place tonight, I think, from Ballymena. But I didn't really see my full birth. I just knew I was at my birth. And I was like, well, why am I here, Lord? What am I doing here? And so he was showing me in that how he walked with me is that even before I was born, of course, in the scripture shows us this, he's the one orchestrating and knitting us together in our mother's womb, knitting me together in my mother's womb. He's the one that orchestrates and makes the birth happen. And really was just speaking to me about, when I take your hand and when you walk with me, how I walk with you, Claire, is that I do it all. I go before you. I'm the one who gives you breath and even brings you into this world. So I'm going to be the one, as I walk with you, to do everything. I am your strength. I am your life giver. So it's really been profound to think about that, and just to see that. I wasn't expecting to see that at all. Mark, do you want me to share a bit more about the picture with it, or I can leave it there?
If you like, Claire, yeah, please carry on, yeah.
Still working through this part, but just, it was funny. I was asking God more about, well, yeah, this is amazing of how you're showing me how you walk with me. And then he took me to a picture. I love how God uses songs or movies to speak to us, but he took me to a picture in one of my favorite childhood movies that many of you will know, or most of you will know, The Wizard of Oz. And if you know the movie in The Wizard of Oz, that wonderful part where Dorothy is in the house and the tornado takes her up and over the rainbow and lands her in the wonderful world of Oz. Well, the part that he showed me was the house, Dorothy's house, landing with a thud in the multicolored world of Oz. And for those who know the movie or who can remember the movie, at that moment when the house landed, totally unbeknownst to Dorothy, who wasn't trying to do anything, her house killed the Wicked Witch of the East as it landed. And I felt through that time, God was just saying, you landing in the world, your very presence, just how I orchestrate it, accomplishes my purposes and removes things that don't need to be there and brings life where it needs to be there. And again, just that amazing sense of, I'm doing it, God's doing it. You just have to land where I have you land. So yeah, I really encourage you as you listen to these questions tonight, God is just going to be encountering you and speaking to you. Thanks, Mark.
Great, thank you. And I'll just hand over to Natasha, who's just going to run through the questions so we can get into the breakout rooms. And thank you for the comments. And I can cover them later. So, and because I'm a scientist, I could talk about opsins, I could talk about melatonin, I could talk about this, that, and the other, because it's obviously light will actually affect our body clock, but actually how much more our spiritual body clock in who we focus on. And actually, we don't want to focus on any counterfeit lights or anything else. It's Jesus who is the light of the world. And actually, it talks about God being the Father of lights, in whom there is no shadow of turning. And I think Claire's story, is her encounter, which is very powerful, shows us the fact that actually by just being born, by just actually being occupying a space, as it were, in the physical realm, causes actually a space in the heavenly realms, in the supernatural realm, which can actually accomplish many things. because it's important sometimes where you might have gone for a job interview or something like that, and you didn't get it, and you think, well, I knew it was God, but why did I go for it? It's because you create a space for either you to go in at a later date, or you're creating a space for someone else to take that place. And actually what you've done is you've advanced the kingdom of God in that place by, as it were in the Wizard of Oz, killing a witch, you know, actually bringing the kingdom of light into a particular place. And even if you leave it and don't go back, the kingdom of light has come, and you've spoken the words of life in that place. So that's why it's so important. So thank you, Claire, for that. And I would encourage people just to read, you know, Song of Songs about, and I was going to try and find it, and I actually have found it. So can I read it, Natasha, and then we'll go into the questions, because I just love it. I just, and thank you, Renee, for your comments about walking with God. The fact that you know, it's on message, because we can say a lot of stuff. Actually, I think I need to pin myself. Here you go. Add pin. Okay, there we go. So yeah, so just let me read this, and then I hand over to Natasha. And it says, the Shulamite bride, Song of Songs, 4:16 to 5:1. Then may your awakening breath blow upon my life. This is in the Passion Translation. Until I am fully yours. Breathe upon me with your spirit wind, which was actually what was blowing over the skin of Enoch. Amazing. Stir up the sweet spice of your life within me. Spare nothing as you make me your fruitful garden. Hold nothing back until I release your fragrance. And this is it. Come walk with me as you walked with Adam in your paradise garden, and come taste the fruits of your life in me. And the bridegroom king replies, I have come to you, my darling bride, for you are my paradise garden. And the Shulamite bride replies, come walk with me until I am fully yours. Come taste the fruits of your life in me. And friends, that's what we want to display, to express in our comings and goings, both now and evermore. And these questions are really to help us to think about how we're walking. And it's not like, well, I must be walking badly. No, it's how are we walking? If we're out of step, what can we do to get in step? And who are we walking with? And it's always, the answer is always Jesus. The answer is always, our focus is on, you know, he is our lover. He is looking at us with those fiery eyes of blazing love, because he is the living flame of love. Over to you, Natasha.
Thank you, Mark and Claire. That's really, really powerful. And yeah, we did this exercise, and it's such a powerful invitation to a dialogue with Jesus. So in a minute, we're going to send you out. Carl has been busying away, setting you all up into breakout groups, and you're going to get to be in a group of about 10-ish people, and you'll get a chance to get to know each other, be introduced to one another, and then you're going to have about 50 minutes just of silent reflection by yourself, just to ask God these questions. And there's not a right way to do this. It's just, these questions are an invitation to a dialogue with Jesus. So if you're talking to Jesus, that's it. You've got it. It's great. Okay, so Jesus might show you some different things from Claire, and that's good, and that's fine, and that's great. You might have an encounter with Enoch. He might not feature. Do you know? It's fine. It's fine. So question number 1 is, ask God to show you your walk today. How has he walked with you today, and how have you walked with him? So ask Jesus that. Question 2, I'm going to put them in the chat bar as well, so they'll be there for you. But who are you walking with in the spirit and in the natural that is leading you into a closer walk with Jesus? And what are you learning from them? And question 3 is to ask Jesus, is there anyone that you're walking with right now who's not helpful in this season? And ask Jesus how you can manage that if you hear someone's name. And for some of the people in our group, they said, oh, I didn't hear anyone, and that's fine as well. So yeah, and another of our group was reminding us that actually, if God does say someone, then he's going to provide a win-win solution that's going to work well for both of you. So those are the questions, and your group leaders will kind of remind you of those when you go into your groups. And then you'll have a bit of a time to just share with each other. So there's absolutely no pressure. If you want to, you can share as little or as much as you want, but obviously just be sensitive to the whole group, so that everyone gets a chance to share. And when we come back, we'll come back about 9-ish. And when we come back, we're going to have a Q&A. So the rest of the time up until 9:30 is a Q&A time. So if you've got, I know that I've got questions from things that Mark has shared, from things that Claire has shared. So if you've got questions, you can be writing them down as well and thinking about them, because we'll have a chance to answer some of those later on. So I think, have I covered everything, Mark? Does that sound good?
That sounds great. That sounds really good. So have a great time in your breakout rooms, and the hosts are there, not with the answers. All right, it's important to know that, just to take the pressure off the hosts. They're there to facilitate and just to kind of bring, to make sure that everybody feels that they can contribute. So yeah, they're there to facilitate and remind you of those questions if you've forgotten them. But yeah. And then we go to 9:30, we finish. And for those who are new, we finish at 9:30 UK time. It's 8:10 in the minute UK time. And then we have something called the afters, which in the UK is for dessert. All right, it's when you have dessert. And so we end at 9:30, but then we stay on for as long as people want us to stay on. It's usually an hour and a quarter, where it's more free flow prophetic stuff, and we pray for nations and each other. And I would love to, there might be a couple of people from Wales, extra people from Wales, that I would really like to pray with as well in the afters, if they can stay on as well. So that'd be great. Thanks, Natasha.